Welcome back. In the previous video, we explored 5 different ways in which you can go ahead and transform simple triads to really deepen your knowledge of the fretboard. Now today, we're going to be diving deeper into the first one of those tricks, which is removing the middle note of a triad to create powerful diad shapes on the guitar. Now these diad shapes will give you the flexibility to play any major or any minor chord in any key in a way that's going to cut through the mix and really add some melodic interest to your guitar playing. So get ready to take your worship guitar skills to the next level, grab your guitar and let's dig in. Alright, so we looked at triads in a previous video. If you want to get the details of triads, go ahead and check the link in the description. You can find that video where we explained all the basics of triads. But let's just do a brief summary just to kind of get everybody on the same page. A triad in essence is simply a 3-note chord. So I can play a G like this, or like that, or like this. All of those are major chords. So I've got 3 notes within each one of those shapes and I have 3 inversions. So I have the root position with the G as the bottom note. I've got the first inversion with B as the lowest note. And then I've got my second inversion with D as the lowest note. You can play them on different string groupings. You can do it on strings 1, 2, 3, strings 4, 3, 2, even strings 5, 4, 3, and strings 6, 5, 4 as well. So those are major triads. Now you can also turn these G major triads into minor triads by flattening the third. And of course you can do that anywhere on the guitar. Now for today, we're going to be focusing on string grouping 4, 3, and 2, where we can play these triads. By the way, there's a link in the description to a cheat sheet for everything I'm about to show you. Now the question is, it kind of sounds cool with a clean sound like this. A bit of tremolo on there, there's some delay, and of course some reverb. I can also do it with a sound like this. I can even have a massive ambient tone like this. But as soon as I go to a fairly dirty sound, it's going to sound like this. And that's kind of cool, but it doesn't quite ring out through the mix like you would want it to. So now the question is, what would happen if I take these 3 triads and then I'm just going to remove the middle note. So that in this case, it's going to be my G string. So if I remove these middle notes, I'm going to get diads that sound like this. So immediately you can hear that those voicings cut through the mix a lot better, and they are what we call diads. So a triad will be 3 notes, but diads will simply be 2 notes. And there's a lot of fun that you can go ahead and do with diads. So what exactly are diads? Well, diads are 2-note chords consisting of 2 different pitches. And diads are also the simplest form of harmony that you can get in the guitar. And because it's just 2 notes, it's more of an open, ambiguous sound as compared to triads. This means that these diad voicings can really cut through the mix much better than those triads, especially with a dirty tone like I've just demonstrated. And they're also super easy to kind of maneuver all across the fretboard, so you can really kind of move out of the box. Now, in our example, what we're going to do is we can use 3 2-note chord shapes to play any major or minor chord. Let me go ahead and show you what I mean. So the premise is I'm taking these triads, and then I'm just removing the middle note. I'm removing it. Now let's look at the shapes real quick. You'll see them pop up on the screen as well. Shape 1 looks like this. There's a string gap in between and there's a fret gap in between. The second shape, instead of this, it looks like that. So again, it's played on the strings 4 and 2, but this time there's no fret in between. I'm literally playing the two notes next to each other. And then my third and final one, or both notes are being played on the same fret. And the way that you find these is simply by the triads eliminating the middle string. And that gives me 3 shapes. Now, the big deal here is I can take those 3 shapes and play any major or minor chord. So let's go ahead and look at what I mean. If I have a G chord like this, then I can take those 3 shapes, G, you can see that my 3 shapes there. Gives me G. I can take those same 3 shapes to play C. So this is shape 3, shape 1, and shape 2. So you can see I can take just those 3 shapes and play G major as well as C major. Same 3 shapes, different places on the guitar. So I can play E minor with shape 3, with shape 2, as well as shape 1. And I can do the same for D major. There's D, shape 2, D, shape 3, and D, shape 1. So do you get what's happening here? It's simply 3 2-note shapes. You can see them on the screen right now. And I can use those 3 shapes in different places on the guitar to give me 3 versions of a G, 3 versions of a C, 3 versions of an E minor, and 3 versions of a D. So you can play any major or any minor chord with these 3 shapes. Let me do it for you now with all 4 chords. So I have G, C, E minor, and D. And that gives you the 3 shapes playing any major or minor chord. Now, like I said, there's a cheat sheet available to you in the description that actually shows you what those triads look like. Because if I play all 3 G triads, it will look like this. But with 4/2 diads, it looks like that. Or I can play C, but just with 4/2. I can do E minor, and I can do D major. So the idea there is you get these shapes by removing the middle note of your triads, whether it's a major or a minor triad, and then from there you can play 3 different versions anywhere on the guitar. So I want you to just take a second and consider what's happened now. You will no longer be bound to one box by just knowing one version to play a specific shape. You can choose to play the same progression in 3 different places on the guitar. So for example, I'll do G, C, E minor, D, G, C, E minor, D, G, C, E minor, D, G, C, E minor, D. And can you see with the ease, I'm able to kind of flow up and down the neck and play any one of those progressions, making use of these 4/2 diad voicings. Now we'll get into the theory in another video. There's also a little bit of a breakdown in the cheat sheet, but you don't have all 3 notes of the chord every time. Like when I play G, B, D, as a triad, I have G, B, and D. But when I play the diad, I just have G and D. So technically this is a power chord. When I play the first inversion, I have B, D, G. But when I play the diad, I just have B and G. And when I play a triad, I have D, G, B. But with the 4/2 diad, I just have D and B. In fact, there's no root in this chord, but it's still sounding like a G major. That is quite important to know, that you don't have to play all of the shapes every time when you play a chord. You can simply revert to these 4/2 Diads, and that will really help you to kind of play anywhere on the guitar. So I thought, let's make it fun. We'll put together a progression which is G, C, E minor, D with one chord per bar, and then I'm going to go ahead and play it for you with triads, and on the repeat I'm going to play it again with Diads. And then you can see when I use the Diads, it's going to be a much more open sound, much more maneuverable, because you can easily flow up and down the neck, and they are able to cut through the mix in a much better way than what you would do when you play simple power chords or traditional triads. Alright, so as you can see, that's quite a big difference. The parts, they kind of pack a bit more punch when you just do 4/2 voicings like that, because it makes you much more maneuverable. I can go from G all up and down the neck, C, etc. Now, you would typically not combine them all the way I'm doing. I'm just doing it for demonstration purposes to show you how flexible these voicings are. Now, you can also apply these to different songs. So if you look at, say, Cornerstone, we can check out the bridge of Cornerstone. Like if I were to play just the triads, then what's happening there, it's basically F, A minor, G, to C, again F, A minor, G, and C. Now when you just play it like that, it's quite full and those triads are sounding a little bit predictable, but if I just do that with Diads again, like I've shown you before, it'll sound something like this. As you can see, again, it brings a lot more melody than if I just play those with triads. It sounds like this. Kind of sounds very, it's monotonous, it's kind of predictable when you do all the triads, because that's what your brain expects to hear when you play the triads like that. But when you remove one of the notes, it just makes things sound a little bit more interesting. You can also take a song like Alleluia by Jesus Culture, and then you can see what they do with their triad. So for example, if the chord, if it's in the key of A, so it'll be 4, D, 1, A, 5 for E, and 6 for F sharp minor. So if I just play triads, 4, 1, 5, 6, it's quite a full sound, but if I go with my 4/2 version here, it's going to sound like this. As you can see, it adds in a lot of spice and a lot of like melodic movement, and it really cuts through the mix, yet you don't lose that chordal element. You are still able to fill things up with a chord. So what you don't want to do as an electric guitarist, you don't want to be playing full chords like this, right? And you also don't want to just play triads. You want to instead go with a 4/2 version. For parts like that. Now you might notice me using some embellishments, and that is basically much easier to do when you play these 2-note voicings because you have some free fingers to do some fun stuff. I think most of us know this sound of a D major chord. If you just play a D, then if you want to make it sound fancy, maybe with a bit of a cleaner tone. So when I add these bits and pieces to that chord, it's what's known as an embellishment. So if I play a G, then I can embellish it like this. I can rather go or like this, or like that. And in the C, or an E, or a D. When you create those embellishments, then you get some more melodic movement in your playing because you've got some spare fingers to go ahead and add in those additional notes. In the description, we'll also link to some complete songs that I played where you'll be able to see all of these 4/2 voicings in action. We've gone ahead and put that onto the fretboard for you so you can actually see where those voicings need to be played on the guitar. Mostly focused around these 4/2 diad voicings. That's our internal way of saying it's on the 4th and 2nd strings that you're going to play a diad. So go ahead and check out those videos, and if you want to, grab the cheat sheet where I'll show you how to transform those triads into diads. Alright, so congratulations on mastering the power of diads. By simply removing that middle note of a triad, you end up with 3 super versatile diad shapes available at your fingertips, allowing you to play any major or minor chord with total flexibility, and you can even add some melodic interest when you throw in those embellishments. Now, I'm convinced that these dyads will help you to come up with some cool parts and come up with playing that will cut through the mix, and overall it will add a whole new dimension to your worship guitar sound. So go ahead, keep practicing these shapes, and don't be afraid to experiment with the embellishments to go ahead and make them your own. In the description, you'll find the link to the cheat sheet of all these shapes, and you'll also find the link to some songs where I've gone ahead and used 4/2 voicings almost exclusively. And then remember to subscribe to our channel, because this is only the first video within this whole series where I go ahead and unpack these 5 different transformations that you can make to triads. So make sure you go ahead, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and you'll get notifications whenever we release new videos like this one. Happy practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.